we are mildly interesting guys, and we talk about some stuff. So welcome to the podcast, we call it Joel the Podcast. It's Alex and it's Alex, here for Joel the Podcast. Bzz. Hello everybody, I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast,
Joel.
Welcome to episode 94 of Joel the Podcast.
Correct.
We're here on a beautiful spring day. I guess it's kind of dark here, but...
Yeah, well, I've still got a last bit of sun, and apparently it's about 70 degrees out, so...
Nice.
Can't complain with that.
So yeah, welcome to episode 94. I wanted to remind everyone that Nathan does not owe me $1.
And Alex does not owe me $1.
And that's the dollar portion of the podcast. Let's talk about sports in our trademark Sports Minute.
Before we actually start the Sports Minute this time,
Of course.
I wanted to have a brief discussion about the philosophy of the Sports Minute, reflecting
Absolutely.
on our past couple of weeks.
That sounds like it would be necessary.
Do you think, and maybe this is more of a question for the listeners that we can kind of discuss and make some guesses about, should we try and fit as much diverse sports news as possible into 1 minute? Or should we, as we have done in the past, focus on something and give a little bit of our thoughts and analysis? Like, is this just a minute of spouting as many facts as we can? Or should we kind of dig into something a little bit deeper?
Honestly, I don't know that anyone who listens to this cares enough about it for us to do one or the other. We should just do whatever we feel like.
Okay.
However, that may be wrong, because I know when David emailed us, he said that he wanted us to do a sports minute because he liked hearing about what's going on in sports so that he can talk about it with, or at least know what other people are talking about when they mention it.
Right.
So it may be better to do a more of a breadth first discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Which I suppose is the reason that I brought that up, because that's kind of the opposite of what we've been doing, I think.
Well, we kind of do deep dives because there's not a lot of news. Because, we'll talk about, a specific thing that happened because everything else is just more games were played.
Yeah.
Which is not that interesting to say, so... I don't think we've necessarily done a bad job of this, but today with a few more bits of news, we'll try to cover everything.
All right. In that case, let's get started.
So the NBA regular season ended this week, yesterday actually, and that means the play-in tournament games will be happening this week. And highlights of that is that the Lakers will be playing the Warriors in a play-in game, so that's exciting. The NHL season ended somewhat recently, last week or two, I forget, and I have no idea what's going on in the NHL.
You didn't mention for the NBA that the 76ers are the number 1 seed in the East.
The 76ers are the number 1 seed in the East. They finished with the 3rd overall best record in the league.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that they're going to win the finals?
3.
Okay.
Which is the most confident I've been in years.
Incredible.
I mean, winning the finals is pretty hard, right?
Okay, like reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, then.
Reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, I would say 7.
Okay.
Or 8.
Good analysis. There were lots of facts we left on the table, but I don't know. That felt all
right. Okay, so there's your Sports Minute. And now we move on. I already know the answer, but as a formality, did we receive any emails this week?
We did not receive any emails this week. And I think in part that's because we didn't upload an episode the past week. And that is partially because I don't think I saw your audio uploaded.
No.
And partially because I mean, maybe we should talk about this not live on the podcast, but I'm not sure what we want to do about that episode.
Yeah. I don't know. Just, yeah, we can talk about it later. If you're listening to this and that episode is not uploaded, the reason is because it's very, very, very bad.
So, you're welcome. And if you did have to listen to it, it wasn't that bad.
If you did listen to it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the good news is we are doing something different this week, which is Quora, which is not different, I suppose, compared to our past history, but is at least different compared to recent history.
It's been like 10 episodes since the last time, so I think it's been long enough. That's like 2 months.
Hopefully this idea is fresh and exciting again, and we can dive right in and start answering some questions.
Absolutely. Let's do that. So you have Quora pulled up. I'm pulling it up now.
In fact, I do.
This is a question, since we were both teenage boys, we might be able to answer this. Why does my teenage son always close his laptop whenever I walk by? Is he hiding something?
Is that the full question?
That's the full question.
Okay, I guess to very specifically answer the question, maybe. And I say that because I don't know about you, but I think even to this day, to some extent, I don't specifically want people to see what I'm up to, even if it's nothing.
Right.
So
yeah, there's certainly that. For me, I would say, when I was a teenage boy, we all get certain feelings, and I didn't really want my parents to see that I was Googling Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I thought that would be very embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a universal phenomenon there.
Right. No, all the guys out there know what I'm talking about.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I guess your time hasn't come yet. Just wait.
Yeah. Just Donatello is waiting for you. All right. I just wanted to share this answer because this is actually the real reason I read the question.
Okay.
Could be anything, really. Maybe he's just gotten 3 out of 50 on an Are You Smarter Than an 8-Year-Old BuzzFeed quiz and didn't want that kind of public humiliation. Maybe he's taking over Area 51's cameras to show the noble 1.7 million their way. Maybe he's feeling inspired and has started selling his bathwater. What if he's started selling your bathwater? Maybe he's completing his Dragon's Den application for said business ventures. Perhaps he is recently disrobed and is now engaging in a special chat with a female friend. Or he could be engaging in a special chat with a male friend. Or he could be engaging in a special chat with a relative. Oh, actually, you might want to have a word about that one. He could be writing on Quora himself and didn't want you to find his account. Maybe he's applying for a questionable job. Maybe he's applying for a non-questionable job, but didn't want you to know until after the interview in case he didn't get it. Maybe he's buying an expensive, very, very expensive guitar or computer or whatever he's into, and probably shouldn't be, and would rather just do the old, oh, that, yeah, it was cheap, only £50 when it arrived, hoping you wouldn't check. He could just be doing it to get you paranoid for fun. He could be buying a gun or a knife or drugs. He could be selling a gun or a knife or drugs. He could have been ordering you a special surprise birthday present and didn't want you to give you any spoilers. That's right, bet you feel guilty now. And here's the craziest idea yet. Maybe he just wanted a bit of general privacy.
That's crazy. What a crazy idea.
Credit to Max Cyril for that answer.
It sounds like a fake name.
It almost certainly is. No one could be named that.
All right. Well, that was a good answer. Good answer for a good question. I feel like we could probably come up with some other reasons he may have been hiding it, but I don't know. That seemed like a pretty exhaustive list.
All right, you got any questions on your end?
What is the 7-letter word for a food no one wants on their pizza? This sounds like a crossword clue.
Yeah. It's clearly anchovy.
Yeah, anchovy is one of the top answers here. Some other ones we got are avocado, mustard, venison, popsicle, coconut, asphalt.
Sorry, we were just sharing an interesting Quora question.
Ketchup. Oh, this guy says, I often put ketchup on pizza. Tastes better than olive oil.
These are a lot of parent questions. Maybe I'll see if I could find some other category of questions.
Maybe Quora thinks you're a parent.
Let's go into the online marketing Quora. All right, as content creators, we can probably answer this one.
All right, let's
Which
hear it.
platform is better for a small business, Facebook or Amazon?
Well, to my knowledge, I guess, well, I don't know. There is like a Facebook marketplace. I was going to say you can't really sell things on it on Facebook. I suppose you can, but definitely it's easier to do on Amazon. At least I would assume. And certainly, if I were going to attempt to buy something, my first instinct would be to go to Amazon. There's also the matter of, I guess, advertising, in which case I feel like Facebook would be able to deliver better targeted ads.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know to the extent that Facebook tracks you. Facebook definitely tracks you. I don't know the extent to which Amazon tracks you.
It definitely tracks you.
Search
what I
history
would say
and
is
such.
that Jeff Bezos is wealthier than Mark Zuckerberg, so I'll let that speak for itself.
That's definitely a good point. He's, certainly skimming more off the top of sales. Let's see. My husband sometimes cuts a round pizza into square slices to serve to guests. Is this a red flag?
Is this a red flag? I mean, I'm laughing because the answer is so obviously yes. Like,
Yeah.
you're seriously with someone who cuts their round pizza into squares?
I mean, those are
That's
two
like-
different shapes. You've
That's
got to
like
cut
us-
pizza into concentric circles.
That's borderline psychopathic.
Yeah.
Like, pretty sure if I saw someone do that, I would immediately leave, regardless of the situation.
Right. Call the police on my way out.
Now I'm getting a lot of politics. I don't really want to talk about politics. Although I do want to say... No, I don't want to say that.
All right. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. My tenant's washing machine overflowed and collapsed the kitchen ceiling in the apartment below. We replaced the ceiling, and a week later it happened again. The tenant below is complaining. What can be done to stop her from using the washing machine?
All right, that is a lot to take in. Read it again.
All right, so the tenant's washing machine overflowed and collapsed
Right.
the kitchen ceiling in the apartment below.
Wait,
The
that makes no
landlords-
sense to me.
So, like, the tenant is on the second floor, right?
Right, their washing machine overflowed.
And, like, the water damage and the weight of the washing machine.
Oh, the
like,
water
caused the-
damage. Right. Okay, I was like, how is a little bit of water spilling on the floor going to cause the ceiling to collapse? Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so I guess it, like, soaks the one layer of drywall that the floor is,
Right.
and the washing machine crashes through it.
Right.
So
There's
then the
definitely no
landlord
other
replaced the
reinforcement.
ceiling,
Right.
and a week later the ceiling collapsed again for the same reason. Obviously, the tenant below is complaining, so the question is, how do you convince the upstairs tenant to stop using the washing machine?
Right. This is definitely the wrong question. Your question should be, how do you get your downstairs tenant to move out without suing you?
Right.
Um,
Secondary goal is, how do you get the upstairs tenant to be willing to go downstairs to use their washing machine, which is now permanently on the floor below.
Right. So,
Luckily, there's an easy access hole that they can throw their clothes into. But they themselves might not be comfortable jumping through the hole, so...
Right, you need to install a fireman's pole.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
And you can climb up it, too. So the first thing I would think of is you need to find out whether either of these tenants have copies of their leases. Because if they don't, then your life gets a whole lot easier.
That's 100% true. Don't look that up.
If they don't, you can just... This is not legal advice, and I am not a lawyer. But you can just change the lease to say whatever you want. Specifically, something like, this tenant must allow the washing machine to regularly fall through the ceiling. Or this tenant must use the downstairs washing machine. So, I mean, that's my first thought. What about if they have the lease, you might be thinking? That's where I'm going to pass it over to Nathan.
Alright, if they have the lease, I guess the first thing to determine is whether they have multiple copies of the lease. If they do, you're probably out of luck, or at least going to have to resort to some more drastic action. But if they do only have one copy, you can probably slip the copy of the lease into the puddle of water and wait for it to become unreadable due to being soaked by the washing machine that is broken. At which point you can probably proceed as described before.
Right. That's a good point. And yeah. I mean, I would think that if they have the lease, they probably have, multiple copies or some way to an electronic copy. Like, I have a scanned copy of my lease.
That's a good point, yeah. I wonder if it's possible to destroy all of the tenant's belongings, just in case.
Right. I mean,
That
one
way
thing
there's
you could
no
do...
way that they can come after you legally.
Well, it could be in the cloud.
Ooh, that's a problem. Maybe they can destroy Google's entire infrastructure.
I would, to be safe, I would destroy all their belongings and every computer in the world. Just in case it's not on Google's servers.
Just in case. And in fact, if you do that, you're taking care of the case where they have multiple copies, rather than just, a cloud copy.
Right.
And that's pretty foolproof.
Indeed. Okay, so with that in mind, what can you do if you aren't able to destroy every computer in the world? I mean, this is like a long shot, but you could try to teach the upstairs tenant how to use their washing machine properly so it doesn't overflow when they use it.
That's a good point.
Because that sounds like that sounds like an easy thing to fix. Like, how is their washing machine overflowing every time they use it?
Yeah, that's got to be a clear point of investigation here. You know, maybe they've never used a washing machine before. Maybe they're putting dish soap into the washing machine and it's making a huge mess.
One time I accidentally put dish soap in a dishwasher.
Oof, yeah, that's rough.
It's a big overflow.
Yeah. But so the question is, in that case, did it crash through the ceiling into the apartment below?
Well, this is on the ground floor, so...
So there's no way to tell.
No.
Got it.
It did not. It was also in the kitchen, which has a waterproof floor.
It's interesting. Is the floor waterproof? Maybe that's what you should go to next.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Is it possible to?
Is it possible? Maybe I know this is an amazing idea, but to make a floor that doesn't collapse from water being put on it, like that really seems like a low bar that you could easily, get over.
Yeah, I would definitely be uncomfortable. Like, I mean, the way this is phrased is so nonchalant. Like, if a washing machine fell through my ceiling twice, I would be like either living there for free or like very reduced rent or moving out, because that is a sketchy apartment building.
Right.
There are some building codes not being followed there somewhere.
Right. All right, let's move on to another question here. This question comes to us from Elizabeth Renee Gower Graham.
That's a lot of names.
Maybe she's the one who answered it. I always get this mixed up.
Nobody really knows how Quora works.
Yeah, she's the answerer.
Gotcha.
So he doesn't really say who the question is from. What can I do to make my clothes smell fresh? I mean, my first thought is just rub a lemon on it. What do you think?
Rub a lemon is good. You can definitely also use, let's see, what other kitchen liquids? Limes also have a very similar
Limes
juice.
Are not liquid.
I was
Wait,
thinking of the lemon juice.
Are you thinking you cut it open and then rub it on there? I'm just saying.
Oh, you just rub a whole lemon.
Yeah,
okay.
Take the whole lemon and rub it on there.
You could.
You might get it a little wet if you cut it open.
That's true, and if it's wet, I mean the entire integrity of the material is completely gone.
It might just disintegrate in your hands.
That's true. So let's see. Okay, we can rub a whole lemon or a whole lime on it. I feel like also an orange would work similarly.
Yep. You could go into a room with an air freshener and then take the clothes and just kind of like wave them around, like flap them around in your hand.
That's true. That's definitely true. If you were to like spray a bunch of perfume in like kind of a cloud,
right?
And then take the clothes and throw them through the cloud.
Absolutely, and the throwing is key. Otherwise, there's some parts that aren't touching the perfume.
Exactly. You need an even coating inside and out,
right,
for this to really work.
And you could also take a scented candle and put the piece of clothing on top, and then light the candle. That only works on flame retardant clothes, just for the record. Otherwise, your clothes will catch on fire.
If you light your clothes on fire, we aren't legally liable, because, as always, we are not lawyers and this isn't legal advice. So,
we're not doctors and this is not medical advice. But light your clothes on fire.
I'd say it is also possible to. I mean, this is definitely a little more time consuming, but if you just rub a bar of soap all over them. And in fact, you can probably even do that while you're wearing the clothes and only hit the outside.
Right. Honestly, that makes me think of washing your clothes might have a similar kind of effect.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, if you added some water. as you were rubbing the clothes, and maybe even like took the clothes off so that you didn't have to like get yourself all wet and soapy at the same time. That'd be
Have you ever washed your
certainly
clothes?
more convenient. I usually find it unnecessary, like I
Right. Yeah, I've
don't
never
leave the
done.
house
I
anymore,
just
so.
whenever my clothes get dirty, I just buy new clothes.
Exactly.
So yeah, but I guess you could wash them. That might make them smell fresh. If you're poor or whatever.
Yeah, in theory, it seems like that would be true.
Okay, well, there's quite a few ways to get your clothes dry. So, all right, you got another question?
Oh, I haven't been scrolling. I should have been scrolling. Let's see. I opened a donut shop named McDonuts, and McDonald's is asking us to change the name. Will we be sued if we don't?
We definitely had either this question or some similar. I'm pretty sure we had this exact question before.
Really? I have literally no memory of this question.
We either had this question or a very, very similar question.
Interesting.
And I have some recollection of it being a breakfast-related shop, which makes me think that it's probably just the same question. But the answer, we're not lawyers, this is not legal advice, and the answer is change your name, because it's going to be easier than any kind of litigation that you may have any chance of winning.
Yep, I would go ahead and agree with that. Even though I mean, to be honest, in a world without trademarks, I do think McDonuts is a better name for a restaurant than McDonald's, because Donalds are not a food.
That's a good point. Someone might see McDonald's and they'll be like, what do they even sell? Right? They probably wouldn't even know that it's a restaurant.
Right. Whereas, if you went to a different country, you had no idea what any of the like local cuisine was like or anything, and you saw a restaurant called or if you saw a store called McDonuts, you're like,
right.
Obviously that
obviously it would sell donuts, and
yep.
You could even consider like a big stylized yellow M to distinguish a restaurant, so people would recognize it more easily.
Right, representing, of course, a donut cut in half and then rotated into the shape of an M.
As a side note, have you seen Knives Out?
I have.
There's a hilarious piece of dialogue in there, where, thank you, sir, got my milkshake.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
There's a hilarious piece of dialogue in there where, at the end, when the detective guy is saying how everything played out, and he's like, turns out that the thing that we thought filled the hole in the donut of this problem was not a donut hole, but it was a smaller donut with a smaller hole even inside it. I wish I could. Honestly, I should pull up the clip after we finish here, because it's way funnier when he says it. But so anyway, that's what I thought of when we were talking about this. Okay, so as is tradition for all Quora episodes, we have to have a simple math question.
Okay.
So here it is. What is the next number in this sequence? 2, 4, 16, 256, blank.
Ooh, yikes.
I was thinking 7. What do you think?
2, 4, 16, 256.
Mm-hmm.
7 seems legit. That's, definitely the first thing that comes to mind. I guess I'm just wondering if this is a more subtle pattern than that, to where it could even be 8. But I don't
Actually,
know. That does seem unlikely.
I had a thought. The number of digits in each number follows the Fibonacci sequence. So it starts out 1, 1, 2, 3. So maybe it has to be a 5-digit number. So maybe it's 77,777.
Exactly what I was going to say. I wasn't going to come up with the Fibonacci thing. That was pretty good. But once you said that it had to have 5 digits.
Right.
I was also thinking of 5 sevens, obviously.
Although on a more serious note, that makes me wonder if you actually followed this sequence, would the number of digits actually follow the Fibonacci sequence? Probably not, right? Yeah, it definitely wouldn't.
I wouldn't think so.
The actual answer would have... the actual next answer would probably have 5 digits. Okay, you got another question?
I keep seeing, like, politics questions and then fact questions, which don't seem that interesting.
Here we go. This person says, I've had an Instagram account to post art on, but I'm stuck at 76 followers. I post mostly cartoon traditional art sketches. I know it's not all perfect, but I've been feeling good about it. What do I need to improve to get others to like it as well?
Do they happen to post what the actual account name is?
It does not say.
That's a real shame. I would have subscribed on the spot. So clearly they need to learn to market themselves better.
Sorry, just to be clear, you do not have an Instagram account, right?
I don't, but one time Katie sent me an Instagram link that I had to log in to see, so I created a link using the podcast email.
So the podcast has an Instagram.
The podcast has an Instagram, so appropriately the podcast would be the one following in this instance.
Right. That was a good half a milkshake.
Yeah. You know, maybe that would increase the podcast footprint. You know, if we spread out to Instagram or other forms of I hesitate to say social media because I'm not really interested in using social media. I'm not all that interested in using Instagram either, so maybe this is a pointless exercise.
But so, what are some tips that you can give him as since we have a
okay. So yeah, just in general to grow your audience, usually, you know, as we said, if you can market yourself better, that'll definitely help you 100%. If you're going to ask questions like this on the internet, you got to drop a link so that all of the people who are now naturally sympathetic to your cause will go and immediately follow. Right. Another good idea would be to take some hostages. That takes a little bit of effort, but is a really good way to get your name and demands out there.
Right.
And I think you'll find most people will be willing to follow an Instagram account in order to get their children back. So
that's true.
Pro tip.
Although, if you do follow that advice, I would recommend releasing the hostage every time. Otherwise, you may get killed by the police. That's
very true. I guess if you're going to, for sure release the hostage every time, you got to make sure that you're going after somebody who is likely to comply. You don't want to get into some sort of standoff where they wouldn't actually follow your account so that you would be forced to actually leverage the hostages, because that starts to get risky for you.
Actually, that makes me think that maybe blackmail would be better because less messy, and since the ransom in this case is so low, is like so cheap, you don't really need to take an entire hostage. All you have to do is find out some incriminating piece of information about them.
Right, and the positive thing about that one is that you, as you start to gain more followers, your blackmail leverage goes way, way up because you'll be able to post any incriminating evidence on your Instagram to an ever increasing number of followers. So, once you get the ball rolling, maybe with some of these other tactics, you can switch over to full-time blackmail.
Right.
And your account will really take off. Any other thoughts? I don't know if we want to reveal our strategy, but maybe we can give some clues.
We can't reveal anything. I don't want to reveal any specifics, but paying to advertise your channel is is always on the table, or I guess your account in this case is always on the table. So,
right, dropping unreasonable amounts of money, for sure not out of the question if you're trying to get recognized. So, and the other thing I'll say, I guess, really briefly, I think anybody out there who is also a content creator will know exactly what I'm talking about here. If you get the email about the pineapple, you've got to respond immediately, but I wouldn't follow up much beyond that. There's a whole lot of risk involved, and you really don't want to let that get out of hand.
Solid advice. All right. Any more questions on your side?
Yeah. Why does Pizza Hut pizza now taste bad?
All right, so let me ask you this. How many times have you personally had Pizza Hut pizza, or at least when was the last time that you had Pizza Hut pizza, if you can remember the last time?
The last time I had Pizza Hut pizza, I guess the last time I have a specific memory of having Pizza Hut pizza was about 6 years ago, if not more. And actually, let me tell you about that instance because it was pretty funny.
Right.
I went to Pizza Hut with a couple of friends, one of which was Joel.
Uh-huh.
And we sat down as you do, and the waitress came by with the little plates like they do, the plates and silverware.
Right.
But she didn't have enough plates, and so she didn't give Joel a plate right away.
Mm-hmm.
But then she just never came back with more plates. And Joel didn't want to say something, so he just used some paper towels. And this whole time we were laughing because he just didn't have a plate. And the waitress came back. The waitress, I feel definitely should have noticed at some point, right? But just was completely oblivious to this. That's
a good story.
It was the only reason I remember one of the last times, or maybe even the last time, I went to Pizza Hut.
So, do you remember how the pizza was?
The pizza was fine. I might even go so far as to say the pizza was good.
Right. Okay, so personally, the last time I was at Pizza Hut was 2017.
Okay.
4 years ago.
Gotcha.
It was one of the restaurants that I occasionally went to for lunch from my job. And it was like a buffet. Huh?
During the summer?
Actually, no.
Was there a Pizza Hut on campus?
No. This was in 2017 when I spent my fall semester at a co-op. Although I suppose that was actually 2018.
Were you just not on campus in that semester? I sort of don't remember that.
Our junior year, my fall semester, I spent in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania. Well, actually, I spent it here, but I was working in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania on a co-op.
I guess most of my memory of that semester was just doing physics all the time. As opposed to other semesters where I was doing physics a bit of the time and then mostly slacking off.
Right. So anyway, it was not that close, honestly, but I just went there for the variety. They had a buffet. And I don't really remember the pizza specifically, but that fact tells me that it was at least decent. And I went there multiple times.
The buffet is definitely a pro. You don't have to limit yourself to one type of pizza.
Yes. So anyway, this person asked, why is Pizza Hut pizza now bad? And you can tell that we have not been to Pizza Hut in the last 4 to 6 years. So we probably don't know. So I guess I don't know why we started answering this question. It's probably not bad. I guess you know what? Bad pizza? Nah. Bad you. Alright. Let's go up to this question that I found here. If your neighbor uses a lime green shipping container for a shed, is there a tactful way to ask them to paint it so that it's not an eyesore?
All right, I have some pretty strong feelings about this right away.
All right, let's hear it.
If you're going to ask someone to do work because you don't like something or like you want something to change, I feel like you're just straight up a bad person. And the real solution here is for you to do that work for the person. Because chances are they don't care whether or not it's green. So if you're feeling like it shouldn't be green, then I feel like you got to back up that talk with some actual effort.
That's a good point. I don't necessarily agree with your generalization.
I mean, if you can provide a counterexample, I will be happy to reconsider. But
a counterexample to if you want someone to change something because you don't like it, then you should be the one to do it. I don't know. I feel like it's reasonable. Like if you live somewhere that someone not like put offensive imagery up or, on their house. Like there's certain boundaries. Like this doesn't fall into that category. I think this is reasonable for someone to have. But there's certain things where it's reasonable for you to ask the person to take it down because you don't like the way it looks or the content of what they're displaying.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that. I think it's a little bit different in that case because you're just like the work required is just so minimal in that case. I guess the equivalent, maybe an equivalent thing would be like if you like notice that somebody's grass is getting really long and you're like, hey, mow your lawn. You can't like blame them for saying no if they don't like feel like it, you know.
Right. I'm thinking more like, let's say, you're, I don't know. Let's talk about this specific situation, which we both agree the neighbor has no obligation to change it. And your idea of offering to do it yourself is a great idea. Now, the question is specifically asking, is there a tactful way to ask them to paint it? So regardless of whether or not you think that they should paint it, I guess we can help answer this person's question of how they can tactfully ask for it to be painted. And, your offering to do it is a good one. Closely related to that is offering to hire someone to do it.
Right. That's an acceptable alternative.
Right. But, I mean, I don't know. I think the next best thing is to be like, hey, how'd you get that shed? And they tell you the story of how they got it. And you're like, oh, man, can't believe you got that wacky color. And they say something like, haha, yeah. And you're like, no, actually, I hate it. I think it's really ugly and I need you to paint it or else I'm going to sue you.
Ooh, yeah, legal threats are always very helpful.
Yeah, we're not lawyers and this is not legal advice. But, definitely threaten the lawsuit. That'll be effective. And
right.
Tactful, for sure.
Right. Very, very tactful.
All right. I think we nailed that question.
For sure.
Let's see if I can find another question. You have any questions?
I'm going to ask this one. I don't think we'll discuss it very long, but I have kind of a sub-question that I'm more curious about. What cryptocurrencies will still be around 5 years from now?
All of them will still be around.
Okay.
The ones that are all around now, they don't just disappear.
That's
But most of them won't have any usage other than Bitcoin and I don't know. I don't know if any other. I don't really know anything about cryptocurrency except that. So, Bitcoin has been around long enough that I believe Bitcoin will still be in use 5 years from now. But that's it. That's all I got.
When you say in use, do you mean like actively invested in, or do you think that at some point in the future cryptocurrency will actually become a viable currency?
Okay, it's possible that might happen. But I don't think it'll happen. I mean, the thing is, cryptocurrency is already a little bit of a viable currency now.
Right.
Like there are some people who will accept payment in Bitcoin.
I guess, yeah, what I should have said was, like, widespread adoption.
Right. It will not be widespread adopted in the next 5 years.
Sure.
And if it is widespread adopted in, like, it won't be I can't talk. Its first widespread adaptation will not be in the United States. I don't think.
It's an interesting idea.
I think it'll be its best chance of reaching widespread adoption is in a country with a much less stable government, where the actual money there is, shaky at best.
Sure.
But I still don't think it'll happen in the next 5 years, but you never know.
No.
But it will still be actively invested in and traded kind of like it is now, I expect. So yeah, that's my answer.
All right, I feel like that's a pretty good answer. I think
what is your sub? Go ahead.
I think the only thing that I won't, like, actively agree to at this point is that I feel like it may be true that it won't first see widespread use in the United States, but I assume it'll be a more developed country rather than one with an unstable currency. But that is an interesting theory.
Oh, this is dumb. Sorry. I don't know. My mic was muted there for a minute, but I'm trying to put a blanket on because it's freaking cold down here in this basement.
So, seems like a really, unless it's like, I don't know, a strange camera thing, it seems like a very shiny blanket.
It's sparkly. It's got a lot of, little reflective threads in it.
Yes.
I don't know if sparkly is a better word than shiny.
Sure.
Okay. So did you have a sub question based on that, or?
Well, the actual question was which ones are still going to be around. So my sub question was about the usage.
Right. Okay. Got it. So we did answer that.
Right.
Let's see. I'm on the again, I don't know what the official name of it is, but Subquora called Philosophy of Life.
Ooh.
And there's a lot of questions about narcissism.
As a percentage of the population, are there more narcissists on Quora than in the real world?
Wouldn't be surprised. Alright,
Gonna go to the design sub-Quora. See if we can get some subjective.
Here's a question. This is really technically a yes or no question, but I guess it's not really intended to actually answer yes or no.
Yeah.
Have you ever had someone come for dinner at your place and they refuse to eat anything?
That's a very strange situation. I feel like I've definitely been to dinners before, like specifically people get together for dinner and then somebody like doesn't eat something at that point. But I don't think I've ever had anyone like that I've invited to my apartment that just didn't eat a meal. That's really...
Yeah, especially since it sounds like this person specifically invited them over for dinner and then they just didn't eat anything.
Right.
Although, as someone who will go out to bars with people and not drink anything, I wouldn't say that it's totally unreasonable. It's just a little weird.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a long answer. Anyway, and this answer starts with my ex's brother got out of prison. He had served 25 straight years for the murder of the man who killed their father.
Wow.
Okay.
That's intense.
The hell, yeah, like camping. So I'm not gonna read this whole answer, but that is kind of crazy. All right, you got any questions?
Let's see. This design sub-Quora is definitely less interesting than I was hoping.
This is another narcissism question. Do narcissists know I can leave them?
What?
That's the question. Do narcissists know I can leave them? I assume that the narcissist in question is acting like they can do whatever they want to this person or treat them in any way they want, and they're saying, do they not know I can just leave? Because they're acting like they don't care. Or
Well,
they
maybe that's
don't
kind
think
of an
I can.
interesting question. I guess I'm not really sure.
I would assume that narcissists this is some kind of like mental illness, and they're not really acting rationally.
Right.
Let's see. Alright, this is a good question for you as a physics major.
Great. Let's hear it.
Quantum physics says that reality changes with observation. Don't answer yet. Quantum Bayesianism says reality is observation. Which one is a more balanced universe? Are observers just updating their knowledge? So personally, as a non-physics major, I have no idea what this question means. So hopefully you can shed some light on this.
So, I guess, are you familiar with kind of the idea that, like, if you're talking about a quantum particle, it has a certain probability.
Right, I understand how superpositions work and collapsing them and
sure, and then like
distributions.
The question is asking about the specific, like, if observation collapses the wave function, and that Bayesian one, what was that about?
Quantum Okay, so I know that like Bayesian is a probability distribution. I don't remember what it is, but quantum Bayesianism says reality is observation. Okay, which one is a more balanced universe? Are observers just updating their knowledge?
Reality is observation. Are observers just updating their knowledge? I don't know. That doesn't seem like a separate thing to me than the, observation collapsing a wave function. I guess, are they, like, denying the existence of the wave function in the first place and just saying that, like, we couldn't have known, like, it didn't have, there was no prediction that could be made about it because it wasn't observed? Maybe I'm taking this question a bit too seriously, but like...
Yeah, this question just really makes no sense. Oh, there's a parent question. Let's see what the parent question is.
Ooh, good. It's always fun to look at
This is just the same question.
So, like, when non-physics people... This is gonna sound, like, really demeaning, maybe, but, like, if non-physics people are like, trying to learn physics, and they learn, like, the basic concept, but don't, like, understand what it actually means, and then get really deep and philosophical about it.
Yes.
That's what this question reminds me of.
Yeah. A lot of people think, like, because observing something, collapses the waveform or whatever, they're like, oh, there must be something special about us as observers that
right.
changes reality, but it's not actually that. It's just that in order to observe something, we have to interact with it, and interacting with it is what collapses the waveform.
Well, I mean, it's even debatable whether that's an accurate description of reality. Like, I mean, that there's no way really to prove or disprove that observing something is, like, specifically physically collapsing a wave function. Like, that's just kind of an interpretation of what the math tells us. Like, we know that if we don't observe something, there will be some probability distribution, and that if we do observe something, immediately after observing it again will, produce a different distribution, which is why you think of the wave function as having collapsed. But there are other ways you can interpret that. For example, every time you make an observation, the universe splits into, for simplicity, say, two branches where one of them has one version of the observation, the other one has a different version of the observation. They're equally valid, and you just happen to be inhabiting one of those. I mean, that's also not a useful tool for making predictions. That's just an interpretation of what's going on philosophically. So,
cool.
That was a rant. Let's move on.
I'm glad you were here to answer this.
Yeah. What do we got here? Online marketing? Is that going to give me anything interesting? Let's see.
This is not.
Oh no!
Interesting.
Oh, this is a sponsored post, but the title of the post is "How to Entirely Empty Your Bowels Every Morning Revealed."
Oh man!
And the attached image
that
is like a big mixing bowl, full of water with 4 whole onions floating in it. The subtitle to this is "World-Renowned Cardiologist Explains How." So I don't know what cardiologists have to do with emptying your bowels every morning and a bowl of onions, but that's a heck of a clickbait.
Indeed. So I'm on the weird science subquora.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, we're getting fun questions like, is it even possible to put a microchip in a liquid vaccine?
Sure.
Yep. Is this the lie of the year? The downplay and denial of the coronavirus? If I claimed to be a time traveler from 2068, submitting myself to any tests of your choosing, how might you demonstrate that I am a liar?
That's actually an interesting question. I suppose you could ask them easily verifiable facts, and then
like
wait to see, like you could say, for instance, who wins the presidential election in 2024.
Right, but that wouldn't tell you the answer until 2024.
Fair enough. Let's see,
but
2068. That's a bit too far into the future, I think, to ask them about, like, sporting events and things, too. Like, I personally don't know what was happening in sports in the early 70s.
Right, who won the NBA Finals 48 years ago? Let's see.
It was probably the Celtics, actually, but... Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, so what? So other than just events that have happened, what else could we do? It's actually an interesting question, unironically.
Yeah, I guess. My initial thought is to try and prove them wrong with facts, and I guess their counterclaim could be that they couldn't, for some reason, answer. And that's not necessarily a proof that they're not from 2068, right? It's just evidence to suggest that they're not.
Right. This is what somebody answered. I would first ask whether there has been above-ground nuclear testing or nuclear war in the future. If the answer is no, then I would collect hair and fingernail clippings with their permission. Above-ground nuclear testing between 1955 and 1963 greatly increased the amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere. The half-life of C-14 is 5,730 years, meaning environmental levels have decreased in a predictable fashion since that time. The amount of C-14 in human tissue can be compared with the amount of C-14 in the current atmosphere to determine whether determine a date of birth with reasonable accuracy. If no above-ground nuclear testing war has occurred in this person's lifetime in the future, then their C-14 levels should be significantly lower than C-14 currently in the environment, proving at least enough accuracy to determine they are from 50 years in the future.
That's a pretty good answer.
It is a very good answer.
I think that would probably work pretty well, and presumably that's not something that they can easily alter. Although I'm sure those trends hold across populations, but for an individual, I feel like there could be a bit more noise in the data. What if they spent their time around a nuclear reactor or something?
For the record, this question was definitely asked in 2018.
So, just an even 50 years. Let's see. Is there anything else that we could do?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this, and we're not smart enough to come up with anything actually as interesting as this person just proposed.
Fair enough.
Just looking through this subquora a little more. Some of these are kind of gross. Oh my gosh. I don't even understand this question either. I have a lot of respect for people who are actually in physics professionally. Actually, also for people who went to college for it. That is tough and seems terrible. You got any questions?
Not really.
We are over an hour. We could just end it.
I was just about to say we've also hit time. So,
have you ever been hacked?
I have definitely been hacked.
I've been hacked. Alright, well, I'm really trying to find a good last question, but... Oh, here's a good last question. Why does my dog like to eat grass whenever I take her out for a walk?
That's a good question. Grass doesn't really taste that good, so...
Well, you have to keep in mind that dogs are colorblind.
That's true, so maybe they think it's not grass?
I was going to say maybe it tastes good to them because they're colorblind.
Okay.
As a colorblind person, most people don't know this, but we actually have different taste buds.
Ah. So is there something about grass that sounds particularly appealing to you?
No, but I have never eaten grass, so I can't say for sure that it's not good.
Do you think dogs know that, like... So, like, you obviously would know that, like, grass in one location and grass in another location was just grass.
Yes.
Do you think dogs understand that all of the things that are grass are grass? Or do you think they're...
I think dogs are actually too dumb to make the distinction between different locations of grass. Like, dog sees grass and it says, "This is grass." I've seen this before. Place. I know what it is. Like, if a dog saw a rabbit and then it saw another similar looking rabbit, I don't think a dog would know that it was a different rabbit. So
So to dogs, there is like one of every animal, unless it's seeing multiple ones at once.
Yeah.
And...
Or like, you know, it can see two different people, like a child and an adult, and since they look and smell different enough,
mm-hmm.
you can probably tell that they're different people, even if it doesn't see them at the same time. But... Anyway, I really am not a dog expert. I'm just making this all up, but I would assume that a dog would not be able to distinguish between two different locations of grass. So why do you ask that?
Just curious, I guess.
Okay.
No reason in
why else
particular.
might a dog eat grass? Well, another answer is if you're not feeding it, it will be hungry.
That's true. If I was hungry enough, I think I would eat grass too.
Indeed. Can you think of any other reasons why the dog would eat grass?
Maybe the dog is kind of like, what's like sadistic, but toward yourself? Maybe it likes the unpleasantness of eating grass. Maybe it likes being a bad dog.
Indeed.
Maybe it's acting up to get some attention from you. Maybe you're a bad pet owner.
Yeah, this is your fault for letting your dog eat grass because it wants attention from you. Your dog is an angsty teenager. And
you're a bad person.
Alright, this episode has clearly gone off a cliff and exploded, so thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this has been
Joel.